I bought this house from a bank 5 years ago. The previous owner couldn't make mortgage payments, but he moved out without putting up much of a fight, or at least that's what I was told. For the first 6 months after I moved in, I noticed strange things. I would be reading a book on my kitchen table in the morning, and then when I got home from work, it would have moved, subtly, no more than a few inches, as though someone had picked it up, read the back, and then placed it back down where they thought it had been. But I had a keen eye for these details, and I started testing it, placing the book with its spine aligned just along a knot in the wood. And sure enough, after a week of repeating, the book had moved. Perhaps more annoying was that food was going missing from my fridge. My cereal boxes always seemed to run out a lot faster than I was eating them. Someone was washing it down with my milk too, but it was always subtle. There was always just enough room left over for reasonable doubt, until one night, about 7 months after I moved into the home. I was usually a pretty sound sleeper, but there was some stuff going on at work, and the stress was causing me to wake up in the middle of the night. So there I was at 2 in the morning, unable to get back to sleep, lying awake, staring at my ceiling. I could hear little creaks and moans in the pipes, walls, and floorboards. It was a pretty new house, and I always figured it was settling. But that night it was really getting to me, and I just had to get out of bed for a while. I'd have to try sleeping later. I knew there was no point just staying lying there. I got up and made my way to my backyard window. It was one of those new subdivisions where the houses are so large there isn't much property to speak of. One of the wings of the house, an extension that was tacked on by the previous owner, hangs over the backyard, juts out from the rest of the house. My garden looked pretty, flowers blooming in the porch light, but something caught my eye through the window of the extension. I wasn't alone enjoying my backyard. There was a man standing in that other part of my house, and as my jaw dropped, he noticed me. We stared at each other for a moment, and I ran to grab my phone. I locked the door to my bedroom and dialed the police. I ran back to my window, but the man was no longer visible as the 911 operator picked up. It took half an hour for the police to arrive, but I didn't dare leave my room. Not until they were at my front door, and I tentatively crept out to let them in. There was a thorough search of my house. I helped them check each nook and cranny I knew of, but there was no trace of the man, and no sign of a forced entry. There was nothing they could do but offer me the advice to change the locks. I had them changed the next day, but I knew that wouldn't solve the problem. To me, at the time, it was confirmed that a man was living in my home. Perhaps it was the previous owner. They had access to a part of the house that I was not aware of, and that the bank wasn't either. I went out and bought a number of security cameras which I propped up around my house, especially around the extension that the previous owner had built, the wing of the house in which I saw the man the night before. Another nerve-wracking week went by. I dreaded staying there any longer, but I didn't want to spook him. I wanted to catch him, and I didn't want him to know I was onto his trail. Every night, I checked the security footage of the previous 24 hours and saw nothing, but I knew he was there. And finally, at the end of the week, at around 1:30 in the morning, while I was fast asleep in my bed, the security footage showed a trap door opening in the extension of the house. A scraggly looking man stepped out, wearing rags. He had long hair and a beard. If he weren't living in my house, I would think he was homeless. Sure enough, he was going through my cupboards and my fridge, fixing himself some food and making himself at home. I was just as angry as I was disturbed. I called a friend over and showed him the footage of the man retreating back into the trapdoor after his late night meal. My buddy insisted we go to the trapdoor. We had to go down there, confront him for ourselves. It was just too interesting to let it be. We searched the extension for the trapdoor, and it wasn't easy to find, even seeing it in the videotape. But just next to my coffee table, hinge half buried under the carpet, there it was, It had no handle and seemed to blend almost seamlessly into the hardwood floor. I tried to get my fingernails under it and pulled upwards, but it didn't budge. My heart was pounding. My buddy went and got a small crowbar from the back of his truck, and again, I tried to pry open the trap door. It was locked. Must have been from the inside. A chilled feeling crept over my entire body. My buddy was still intrigued, but it was late, and he had to get back to his family. I wrapped a tight length of chain around my fridge-handle doors and put a padlock on them. I grabbed super glue and filled in the seam of the trapdoor before placing my heavy buffet table atop it. Perhaps I couldn't reach the squatter, but I would make sure he couldn't reach me either. A few days passed, and I awoke in the night to clawing sounds coming from my kitchen. When I checked the security footage in the morning, I saw the trapdoor moving under the buffet, but the man wasn't able to open it. I thought to myself, guess you'll have to dig your way out and live somewhere else. No more mooching off me. Another couple days went by, and I awoke in the night again. This time, there was no sound, only a sharp pain in my back. What the hell? I thought to myself, making my way to my ensuite bathroom to check out the source of the pain. There was a small wound in the skin of my back, not very deep, but it was odd because it was shaped like a perfect circle, and a layer of skin was missing, like it had been cut out by a cookie cutter. My bed wasn't that old, but maybe the springs were falling apart. I'd encountered this problem before as a child. I'd been stabbed in the hamstring by a loose bed spring when I jumped on it too hard. But as I pushed down on my mattress, nothing appeared wrong with it. There was a foul smell for a few days, but I didn't think much of it. And just last week, 4 years after the incident, I got talking with my buddy who came over for a visit, and he asked me whatever happened with that man who was living under my floorboards. To be honest, I had completely forgotten about the whole thing. I had gotten so used to the new arrangement with the buffet table in the extension, and I was actually planning a move soon. My buddy told me that he had a circular saw in his truck, and that, if I wanted, we could dig up the floorboards and go looking. As a child, you so often imagine secret places and hidden rooms in the garden and in your house, but it's so rare as an adult you have an opportunity to discover these fantastical places. I took him up on the offer, moved my coffee table, buffet table, and carpet out of the way, and he got to sawing. Again, my heart was pounding and adrenaline pumping, somehow expecting that after all these years I'd still be faced with a combatant on the other side of the trapdoor. The last piece of wood was cut, and it fell open to reveal an unfinished cement cellar. The work was sloppy, clearly a DIY basement. My buddy climbed down first. I was too nervous. I was brandishing a kitchen knife as I climbed down the rotten wooden ladder. The ceiling down there certainly wasn't very high. We both had to crouch as we made our way through the catacombs. At least, that's how they felt. Why on earth had the man put in tunnels? It would have been easier just to make a big room for himself. This makeshift basement ran under the garden, parallel to the true basement of the house. But then it took a turn and dug even deeper, a sub-basement under the real one. The tunnel finally opened up into a larger room. My buddy stopped dead in his tracks, and when I caught up with him, I saw what he was looking at. An ash-gray skeleton, covered in cobwebs and mold, a bit of dry, gray skin still clinging to the bones. It was lying on some elevated platform with its head in the wall. There was something poking out the back of its mouth that extended up the length of the inside of the wall. It was a metal straw. In a last attempt to survive, the man had tried to drink my blood as I slept. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that story. If you haven't already, check out my book, Polyandry and Becoming the King of Hell. It's about a little boy who dies and then grows up in hell. It's got tons of horrific and mysterious elements, and a lot of really intense action as well if you're into that. Anyway, links in the description, and until next time, embrace the beautiful dark.